Thank you, Sherry, and welcome everybody this morning or afternoon for some of you on the east side of the United States. As you can see, today we're going to talk about some of the benefits of universal screening. Try to make it a little easy for everybody and kind of show the process of Review360 within the universal screening process that we do. So just to kind of give everybody an overview of what we're going to talk about and kind of having some session goals. And if you guys have been with me on a webinar before, of course, one of my goals is we try to have a little bit of fun. I know it can be hard with a webinar, but I'll do my best to keep everybody kind of enthralled in what we're talking about. But also, I think at the end of the session, it's important that maybe there's something you can take away, one takeaway that you can look at, understand, and possibly if you're going back into looking at classrooms or talking with some of your team members, that you can use right away. And so that's kind of the goal I have set for myself and for you guys for the end of the session. So the first thing that we really want to look at is we really want to have a clear understanding of what the universal screening process is, debunk some of the myths, talk about the importance, some of the ease that you can do when you're screening. So that's one of the first things we'll talk about. The second part is how does Review360 fit into this complex scheme of things when we're looking at behavior and trying to understand, are students at risk, are they not at risk, how elevated is the risk, and in what areas do they show these risks, because that's always important too, so we can help identify where we're going to start. Also, one of the big ones is using the results of data. We collect data all year long. We collect data in different types. We use it in different ways. And so how are we going to collect all this data? We have it. Now what do we do with it? So we'll talk about the behavioral needs that we have there, some of the risks that are shown, and then really kind of get ingrained into how are we going to make some data-driven decisions, because we really need to have that stuff behind us in order to make decisions when we're talking about students, but when we're talking with colleagues and we're talking especially with parents and understanding, okay, we did this with your son or daughter and this is what it's showing us. Are you seeing this at home? Do you see it in the community? Just talking about different ways of understanding what we're doing, and we have the data to support when we start moving into some more implicit interventions or strategies with their child when the other students aren't getting it. So we really want to talk about, that impact of that data. Always fun to start with a quote. When you look at this, we're talking Campus and Reynolds. Most of you who have been in the assessment world know those names, but really looking at that behavioral screening to try to catch stuff early in order to provide the interventions and strategies. And so that's really kind of a big deal. We want to start early. Being a parent with a child with a disability, we just celebrated last month for my son. Of course, my son is high-functioning autistic, a wonderful guy, but we had him in early interventions by the time he was about 2 years old. We recognized it early, and we were able. So we've had him for the last 7 years getting interventions and strategies, and he's now in the 3rd grade. So when you catch it early, it helps because you can build and hopefully really start molding some of those behaviors at an early age. So as you know, if some of you work with secondary students, it can be extremely difficult if they've been doing that behavior for 15, 16, 17 years to change it. So that early intervention, they really want to make sure that we're finding this stuff early and start making our way through it. Just some terminology things that I like to start with is screening versus assessment. When you say screening, sometimes colleagues, sometimes peers, sometimes parents get a little nervous. What are you doing to my kid? What's wrong with my kid? Anytime they ever hear assessment, that's usually with kids who are in special ed, and I don't want my kid in special. We have to kind of make sure that we draw a line between those two so we know what we're talking about, and it's a little bit easier for some people to take that information in. Okay? So we don't want to use them interchangeably for screening or assessing because we really don't want to say we're doing assessment because we're going to do something. Screening is just preliminary. We're just trying to look at, from a perspective of a parent or even a student themselves or a teacher, is there something that is outside of the norm, what we would call the norm, that we're seeing, that way we can start making some adjustments for that individual. So it's very preliminary. We're just trying to get some preliminary information. It is not a diagnostic tool. We're not screening them, and if they come up as a higher risk or if they show a low level in a certain kind of screener, we're not going to say, oh, well, I guess they probably should be referred to special ed right away. because we see there's a problem. No, there's lots of things that can influence why that's happening, and if we can manage some of those things, we want to make sure we're doing that. So we're not trying to diagnose anything here. But also, it's going to work best if you have some early intervention practices in place, but also getting some additional information. If you do the screener, you're probably going to have talks with the teacher. You're going to have teacher-managed incidents they're working with if they're keeping a log of that. You have anecdotal data. You have data possibly if they've gone to the office. You're going to have a lot of information that's happening all at one time, and that way you can kind of triangulate all of that data and make sure that you're looking at everything cohesively and saying that way we can give a comprehensive answer of where we need to move whenever we are working with this individual. So, but it's nice to have some practices in place and understanding of we have this information, we're getting more information, so now what are we going to do with it? And so assessment, if they're thinking about that, when that word pops up, they're thinking that they assess my kid and they said he's at risk, so there's got to be a problem. It's not a problem. It's a way that, there is some risk. There is some behaviors that are happening, and so we're going to address those, and hopefully with early interventions and good strategies and really putting things in place with fidelity, we can head this thing off the path, and there won't be anything after that, and they'll be able to maintain. We're giving them skill sets that will allow for them to manage those behaviors. So, no, we're not saying that there's a problem, because assessment sometimes thinks, they've done this, and that confirms that there's a problem here. So just to kind of get those things out of the way, we're talking about screening. We're not worried about assessment right now. When we put this together, I'm thinking about the W's. What are the W's, the questions that we have to consider when we're doing this? Because when we ask teachers, and a lot of teachers have a lot of things going on, I've taught for a long time, I'm understanding, there's another thing I'm going to play, these are questions that you're going to hear from people. Why would we do it? Why are we going to do this? What is screening actually? Behaviorally, what are we doing to screen these children? When we screen, what are we looking for? What is it going to tell us? Who should be screened? Should we just screen the kids that we already feel that already have a problem, or should we screen everybody? Who's going to do it? Is this just another thing? This is the one. Is this another thing that I'm going to have to do? So who's going to have to do all this screen? When do you do it? I don't have time. I've got this going on, or this going on, and progress reports are coming. It's the end of the year activities. There's a lot going on. So when should you screen? And so they're asking those questions. Will the results be shared? This is a hot topic and can be very contentious with teachers, is that they provide a lot of information, whatever evaluation processes you're going through, whether it's academic, behavior, school climate, whatever. They want to know, how am I going to get the results back? Because I want to know what happened. And so do you have a system in place so you can share those? What do we do with the results? And we have it. Again, we have all this information. What are we going to do from here? What's the next step in the process? What is the time investment? How long is it going to take me to do this? I have 25 kids, which for most teachers, they would love just to have 25. Some have, the upper levels 30 plus. What's the investment that I have to do here as far as time? Because it seems like this is going to be a lot. And what do we have to know? Do I have to learn something new? Is the process very difficult? What do I have to know in order to fill out this screener? Okay? So the first question we're going to look at is why. Why are we going to screen? Well, we're going to screen because it's going to improve outcomes for struggling students, because now you know something is happening in their lives, whether it's external, internal, adaptive skills, motivation. You'll see all those coming up later. But these are all things that, why are we doing this? Because our ultimate goal is to improve the behavior of kids who are struggling. Kids are struggling, we want to improve it. It provides really good data. You can do some informed decision making. The second point you see there that supports the hunches in the head versus gut. Okay? I used to always tell when I did trainings to teachers that I trusted my gut more than my head, because my gut was probably 4 times bigger than my head. And so I'm going with the bigger one. And so I would go with that. Also had a conversation with a former colleague, and is still a good friend. She's a principal of a school, and she would say, we know this already. We feel that it's happening. The teachers talk about it. That's great. We don't want to go on feeling, because if a kid has a hard time one day and it's enough to get the teacher upset, they're human. They can hold on to that and say, well, this kid has problems all the time, when really they don't. It's something that we have to look at and say, over a course of time, are you seeing this? And if so, then you relay that information, and now we have data that supports what you're feeling and what you're saying to colleagues, administrators, and parents. And so we have that important data piece that's allowing us to say, this is what has been reported. And if you did the parent form, this is what the parent reported, and this is the student reported. Put it all together and say, yeah, we were all pretty much on par here, so we can move forward. So you really want that data to support what you're saying and what you're talking about when you're working with all of these people, because everybody has a head and everybody has a gut. Some guts are bigger than others. Some heads are bigger than others. And so you have to figure out what exactly do we have to go on in order to start making some decisions for this student. Why else would we screen? That early identification I talked about a little bit earlier. We know early on that we can start working on this. We don't want these behaviors to happen over and over and over and over again for years and years and years. The longer you keep doing it, the more ingrained it is in who you are, it's harder to stop. And so we want to make sure we can get that, so we can get them what they need early so we can start working on them. It's proactive. We're thinking ahead. We're trying to stop it before it gets too far down the road. And so a little thing that showed up as a risk, and it may not be a huge risk, but we've addressed it, and we're implementing strategies and interventions through the teachers, to the parents, also maybe some self-coping mechanisms with the kids. They're all working together at one point. We don't have to keep doing this over and over. Hopefully we'll learn some of those replacement behaviors, and we're good. And so you really want to take a proactive approach, because many times we don't do anything with kids until it gets too bad. They're too far. They're really far down the line, causing lots of problems. At that point, they probably showed some signs early. Why else should we screen? Here's some examples. Okay, Campus and Reynolds in October of 2015, we're talking about lower disproportionality in identification, or the referral of male or certain minority groups for behavior concerns. So we're trying to see those things early, and that way we don't have some of these subgroups that are coming up all the time as having what people consider behavior concerns. Resiliency. You do it early. These kids are resilient. They'll learn. They start coping with it. They start working through it. They start seeing all these things. And so if we find it early, when we're looking at all the kids, and we may find kids that we didn't even know that were probably having problems that weren't as easy to spot as some of the others, it's going to help with those kids. But also identify those at risk early in order to better serve them before it's too substantial. And that's what I was saying. Duke hit it right on in 2007, saying, if we hit this early, it won't happen the way I've seen it happen, the way I explained it a little while ago, is that they get so far behind, whether it's academic, but today we're talking about behaviorally. Their behaviors are such that they're so behind of what they should be doing and the other kids that it's really hard for them to catch up. And so they're always behind the 8 ball and always struggling. So that's why we're going to screen a little bit, because we want to make sure we have things in place, we catch it early, and we're not waiting until it gets really bad at the end. That's really what we're trying to do with the screener. Another one of the W's is the what. So what is it? Okay? Just a little stat here, 1 in 5 students have some sort of mental health issue. About only 1% are properly identified. And so these kids are going through many times when a screener would help, at least behaviorally, if they're having some issues that way, to at least getting them some help, some strategies, interventions for them early on. And so it won't go, as Steve was saying, and getting too substantial to do. Really, it's just a preliminary process. We're just looking at some behavioral needs with some data to support that. 5 minutes per student, okay? If you think about it, and that's probably in the long end of it. It's probably shorter than that once you learn the process and you familiarize with yourself with the forms. You will cut that down quite a bit. But once they do that, they're going to move pretty quickly. But it's giving you information, because you are observing these things and you have anecdotal. Many teachers have a spiral notebook that they're writing in, keeping notes and keeping track, and they have it, and it's theirs, and no one else really knows about it unless they share it. But this is a way for you to support what you're seeing and what you've been feeling and kind of what you are understanding about this child currently. This will give you some data to kind of support what you're thinking. But also, outward expression is very easy to see. We used to call them popping kids who would pop in class and do stuff. They are pretty easy to see and spot, and so we know about those. In my world, it was the Corys and the Corys. It seemed like I always had a Cory that was very external when he was doing his outward expression. We might be able to find some kids who aren't that. There are lots of kids that have behavioral struggles in a very different way, and the screener can help kind of glean some of those kids out so you can kind of see what's happening with them. You don't always get the outward behavior with kids who are struggling behaviorally in a different way. So this can do that for you as well. What can it tell us? Different types of behaviors are shown through the screeners that are utilized. You have the externalizing. Most people are very familiar with the externalizing behavior process. They see it. They experience it. Kids are fighting. Kids are very defiant. Kids are using profane language. They are very outward with what they're doing, and that's very easy to see. Whether they're doing it to a peer, whether they're doing it individually, whether they're doing it to an adult. Some of you may have experienced this. This one's pretty easy to find. Kids are doing graffiti. You can see those kinds of things. Internalizing is a little bit more difficult because this one can get overlooked because it's the individual that is experiencing that behavior and sometimes not outwardly sharing what is happening. So you're looking at kids who become very withdrawn socially. So they're kind of the loner kid, the kid who sits at the lunch table by themselves. If they're at recess, they're out walking by themselves, or they're sitting off to the side. They're just kind of to themselves a lot, and sometimes that can be confused with shy, or there may be more going on with a kid like that. Kids that are sad, they may be good at hiding it, but inside they feel very sad, fearful, don't want to come, don't want to do anything. They're scared of everything. That anxiety. And anxiety sometimes when they're watching it, I've talked with a lot of my friends who are psychologists, anxiety, when it's happening, they don't know how to control it, and so the secondary emotion that comes out is anger. And so you're looking at what you see as an externalizing, but once you start talking to the student, it may not be the only way they knew how to express it in order for you to understand that they were having anxiety. So those things sometimes you can't see as easily as the externalizing behaviors, but they're there. And they can be very common with kids, and we miss over those. The quiet kid in the back who doesn't cause any problems really or say anything, but is very kind of reserved and stays to themselves. There may be some information that comes out that would help a child at that stage. So we have the externalizing and internalizing. A couple other things that you can look at is the adaptive behaviors. Okay? This is where they are socially responsible and independent about their performance in an environment. So we're talking, school-age kids at school. So they're going to school. Do they have study habits? Can they work with another person? Again, you could have those kids that are really struggling internally that don't want to be with someone else for anxiety or fearfulness or whatever it is. And so they are not going to be able to work in the group setting. And, right now, as we're looking, the career path, that transition from school to career, that's one of the big things that companies are asking. They'll ask a lot of that. Can you work with other people? Can you work with different departments? Can you collaborate? And so you have kids who really struggle with that adaptive behavior sequence and trying to find out how do I get to school and study and work with people, that they're just not doing it, and they're not able to be responsible for how they're doing it socially. So adaptive behaviors can come out as well. You also want to look at the pro-social behavior side. Okay, basically these are things that benefit other people as well as society as a whole. So sharing, cooperation, helping. You can see how a lot of these are tethered and tied together. If one of them is an issue, it can kind of impact other things. But pro-social behavior is, you have those kids who don't share very well, or they don't want to cooperate with society or other people involved. And then, of course, helping. Are they willing to help or not help? You ask them to do this for you, and they really don't want to do it. So those are those pro-social behaviors. And we also have what they call that motivation to learn, which is a big one. As a teacher or an educator in any level, you really want to have kids motivated. And of course, we always strive for intrinsic motivation, which can be very difficult, but a lot of kids are extrinsically motivated, so they want something. But are they excited and really have their hopes of learning and completing things? Whether it's for you, whether it's for them, whether it's for a reward, what have you, are they motivated to get things done? And as a teacher, that can be very difficult to find out what motivates a kid and what doesn't motivate a kid. But we have to look at what type of engagement are they doing. Can they stay on task for a while, or is it very short spurts of time? But also, how much effort do they give you? I mean, are they trying? Do they want to get it completed? Are they hoping to get things completed? And so that motivation to learn. So all those categories that I showed you, those can be kind of broken apart through the screening process. And so if you find kids that are coming in different levels and different risks, and you're finding, you can really kind of hone down into some of these subcategories to find, well, is it really this externalizing, or is it more of an adaptive behavior that's causing that, or internalizing, or wow, I didn't even know that kid seemed to struggle, but when it comes down to it, they are showing a little bit of risk with the internalizing stuff. And so we're able to catch a few things here and there. Not, the ones we see are relatively easy to spot, but all of these areas are going to give us that support, that data-driven information that we have and need in order to kind of support what we're feeling. Teachers are very intuitive, and so they see things happening, and they understand, especially veteran teachers and the younger ones too. They see things that are happening all the time, and they can kind of pick up on it, but it's also just giving you the support that you need to kind of make statements and ask for help for that child. That's the what. So we'll move into the when. So when is this going to happen? What we recommend, and what I recommend, is that you have kind of a 2, if you can, 3 times a year schedule. And so you may hit them in the fall. So they're coming in, they're there for the first month or month and a half, and you screen. And then they come back, or right after the holiday break, you do January, you screen in there, and then you do one in the spring. So we can do this kind of comparative analysis using a formative evaluation process. We're looking at screening in the fall, winter, and spring. We can see if kids really were showing and how they're responding if we're doing something, or kids who were not showing are now having a more difficult time. And you can kind of look at them longitudinally to see how things are happening and flowing within the school. And, you can look at it by grade level, by all different kinds of things, but you're trying to figure out, where are these things happening so we can make some adjustments there. But that's kind of a schedule that a lot of people will follow. And really what you want to do is the people that are going to fill out the screener about a student, they need to be acquainted with that student. I know that enrollments are very fluid and changing all the time, especially when you have districts that are butted right up next to each other in bigger cities. And if they move from one side of the street to the other side of the street, they would actually move into another district. And so those things are changing all the time. So when you think about screening, and if you're doing, whether you're doing a full grade level, a full campus, a full district, the teachers don't want to screen somebody that they don't know. Those of you who have been in behavior or have heard behavior people talk, there are honeymoon periods, and some kids honeymoon really well, and some kids honeymoon not so well. And so you may not get a really good picture in the first week or two of what's happening. 4 weeks, 6 weeks down the line, they're probably going to show you more of their true self, and so you have a better idea of what you're screening and what you're looking at. Also, it should be somebody who has regular contact with the student. So those kind of go hand in hand. If you know them pretty well, that means you have contact with them a lot. Generally, this is going to be general ed teachers, some special ed if you're looking at kids who aren't already in a behavior program or have behavioral concerns already. But you're looking at general ed teachers who are doing this a lot. So these are people that know them all the time. Some of the smaller schools, the districts, it could be, a counselor if they have groups with every. However, generally it's going to be a general ed teacher, that works with this kid day in and day out, so they get to see him in that environment for long stretches of time. So that's kind of when we're thinking, when are we going to do this? The who, I touched on that a little bit. It can be completed by the individual themselves. We do have a screener that works with a self-reporting, and so that's important. But sometimes you're viewing things and their view, the perspectives are very different, and so you may get some different things, and it may be that one's too harsh and one's too easy, but either way, getting multiple perspectives in that way is very nice. You can have teachers screen only. You can have parents screen as well. You can have, again, the students screen themselves. And so you can have a mix and match if you want teachers and students, if you want to do all three. I would say return rates, can be, well, teachers will be very high because we're all collecting them in one place, and we've talked about it as a school or a district, and this is what we're going to do. The return rate, usually up to 100%. I mean, it's good. Parent forms, as we know, it can be difficult. We send them out. Are we going to get them back? What's the process of getting them back? Who's in charge of getting them back? And with the students, you could do the students at school, so the return rate for them could be very high as well. Parents, it can be difficult when information goes out. Firstly, how are you going to get the information to them? You're sending the form home. How does it get there? Are we going to mail them all there? If people have changed addresses, things like that, or if we're going to send it home with a student, excuse me, we know how that works. It goes home. As far as the student will tell you, it goes home, and then all of a sudden it has gone missing. And so parents can be kind of an outlier in that one, but teachers and student forms, usually those come back pretty good. So if you think about it, a student may give you their best perspective, the best information on what's happening. Sometimes it's harder for the younger ones, but they are as well, and the younger ones can be very honest. But they can really show you what's happening for them. So if you want to go the student route, that can be very, very helpful when you're doing that, because that student is going to give you a lot of information on insight into their own self. So that can be helpful if you want to go that route. So if you think of the forms, minimum reading levels, the way they're built, is that for the parent form at 6th grade, student form goes all the way down to 2nd grade reading levels. And so if you have kids that are having a hard time reading the questions and understanding what the scale is and how to use it, it's going to try to get down to meet the levels of some of those that are having difficulties with reading. And so that form is that way. 20 to 30 questions roughly in those areas for all the different forms. So it's not a lot of things that are happening. A lot of them are Likert type scales, so they're going to do a 0, 1, 2, 3, or a never, always, sometimes, often, things like that. So the scale is not too difficult to work with. And again, you can combine them in any combination that you want. You can do them individually, just with teachers or just with students. It's up to you. But within the process, you can make different kind of combinations, and that way you can get a different perspective. You also can have multiple teachers screen one student. So I know that my son has comboed, so he has math and science with one teacher and English and RELA with another. If you set it up, they could have it where both of those teachers could give you a response to the screener for the same student. Lots of districts do them differently. Sometimes they get the group together and they just put one form for the whole group. So there's lots of ways to kind of combo that out. But it is designed, for teachers because they do have that engagement on a daily basis with the student, probably the most of anybody. And so they're going to be generally the ones that do it. But other personnel, if they know them well enough and that's the decision that you have made within your own entities, that's fine. But it is really designed for a teacher who sees that kid all the time. So the next one is thinking, how do I want to do this? Some places are married to paper, and they like that, and that's what they're going to use. Others are not, and they like to do more of online or electronic data input. So you have the ability with the screeners to either have it paper filled out and then it be put into the system, or if you wanted to do it online, if you were to do it that way, you can actually print out instructions for the parent, especially with parent or student, and it will have basically a code they put in, and I believe they use their birthday as the password. They move in, and the information happens. So there's lots of different ways you can administer it, whether you want to do online paper. Eventually it's going to get into an electronic system, so the scoring happens, but you can administer it however you want between these two options. I've seen it happen with both. I don't really like paper anymore because papers get lost quite easily. So then you also have to think about, internet access and computer access and things like that. So most people now have a phone. I think you probably do it on the phone if you wanted to, or an iPad or some type of tablet. So there's lots of ways you can do that. So I've done everything. You asked me to screen these kids. I put the time into it. Now what? Well, how are we going to share this stuff? Review360, the one that I've used, is that you're going to be able to share this stuff with anybody, all the stakeholders that need it, quite easily. It's very efficient, and it's very effective because it's all right there. It's warehoused in one place. People that need to have access to it have access to it. You can generate lots of reports, so results can be shared with people all over. You can really see that when you do it within the same system, using the same stuff, you're going to have uniformity in terminology or verbiage. The protocol looks the same. So if I have a parent who's doing it and they're filling out the form for their children, it's going to look the same. The reports that we're generating will look the same, which is nice, especially when you're having team members meet and discuss things. All of the reports look the same, and the analysis that it generates is the same. So when you warehouse it all together and you're able to generate all these robust features, everybody's on the same page, talking the same lingo, using the same reports, and making decisions based on things that all look the same. So uniformity is a big deal, and it's going to be shared that way. So in looking at Review360 and trying, as and the title says, making it kind of trouble-free, being able to do things like that, we're going to show that when you build it, when you think about screening, you think about who's going to complete it, who is it going to be completed on, what schools will they come from or campuses, how long will it take, and then, of course, just naming it so if you're doing it multiple times a year, you know which one is which. So when you think about the first section, the individuals that are completing the form, is it going to be teacher, the parent, or the student, or a combination of those? But within the teacher in Review360, you're going to have multiple users. So what type of user will also be completing it? Is it going to be a general ed teacher, general ed and special ed? Is it going to be general ed and counselor? Administrators generally don't do that because they may know a lot of the students, but they don't see them on a daily basis like that. So within that, you'll have that. So you can pick grade level. Some places do it every grade level. Some may say, well, we're having lots of issues at the middle school level, and so we're going to just do 6, 7, 8 or 7, 8, however your schools are broken down. Or maybe it's just specific campuses. And so when you're putting this together, you have to think about which grade level, which campus, which person, because when you build it, you're not going to build it and then select it for specific students when you're building it. So here's an example. If I'm going to do just elementary schools in my district, and I'm just going to use general ed teachers, I'm going to pick general ed teacher, just the grades that I need, whether it's K-5, if that's what elementary schools are, and just these campuses. And I'm going to say we're going to start today, which is Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody, one of my favorite days. And it's going to end at the end of the year. We'll say June 15th. Start and end time frame, and I name it Cinco de Mayo screening. Any person that meets that criterion inside the system there would be an alert on the top. It's not going to send an email, but when they log into the system, in the system it will say you have a screener pending, and we'll kind of show that. So only teachers, general ed, only teachers that are K-5, and only ones at the elementary campus get that alert. It's not going to be for everyone else. But we also stated that beforehand there might be kids that have just moved into that school, any of those schools, and they're not going to, and that's a different process. But just to get the ball rolling, that's how it starts. That's what you're going to do. When that alert comes and they go into the system, and I'll show some screenshots of that here shortly, the teachers that are administrating it will select the students that are there. So we try to run it by rosters. So if I have a roster of 25 kids, but 2 of those do not meet the criterion of 4, or if you've established 6 weeks, or a 4 to 6 week period, 2 of those students don't meet that, then those students can be deselected and they would not be in the process because you don't know them well enough. Make sure they're in the right grade. If you have a kid who's not on your roster because maybe they just were moved to a different class, that happens. They moved into a different class, and so they move them over. You can go and search and pull them over, and then you would start the screening process. So that's kind of 2 phases. You're going to build it, select the criterion of where it's going to happen, who's going to do it, grade levels, campuses, what have you, start and end, name it. Then those people, users, end users, will have a process where they go through and make sure they're selecting and working and screening the kids that they need to be screening. So they'll verify all that, select it, verify it, and then start the screening process. So it's kind of twofold. We're just looking at setting it up, and the teachers have a little bit of understanding of this is one I'm going to do or not do because they don't meet the criterion or they do meet the criterion. The students that are rostered will be pre-selected, so it'll be more of a deselection unless you have to go find a student. So if I'm an administrator, this is what I would see. I would basically just click on Add a Screener, and when I click Add a Screener, it's going to start me through the wizard. Okay, so a wizard would be, I'm going to do this type of screener. I'm going to use it with teacher, and then you can see that it would ask you for the grades. Then it would start asking you campus, those type of things. You'll go through, the wizard takes you through those components that I talked about. Campus, start and stop time, and then to name. And you can see there are some that are named on there already. And the administrator has a screen of all the open screeners that you have, and you can also go to closed screeners. So those type of things are all right there for you, and that you're just making that selection process as an administrator. As a teacher, once that alert comes to you and you select that you want to do a screening, the first thing is you're going to select students. So you're just going to go in and you're going to click on selecting my students, and when it does that, it's going to pull up a screen that shows you the pre-selected students that were rostered to you that you'd be doing the screening process for. And then if Dean is not one of those students anymore, you can just hit the checkbox. It takes the arrow off of it, and he won't be in the process. If you need to go in, you can see the search box below. If there's a student not listed, you can go find them and pull them into your roster. And so when you see those things happening right there, that's how that's going to work. You're going to select your students. Once you move into the system and you actually want to start screening, here's an example of one of the screeners that we use. Is the best 3, part of the the preamps to the BASC and all that big protocol. And so you can see that from this form, it tells you, it gives you a lot of instructions, tells you what the Likert type is, and it's going to be worries. Okay, so if I'm a teacher about Dean, does he never worry, sometimes worry, often worries, or almost always seems like he's worried? I can do one of 2 things. I can select the radio button if I choose to, click one of those, and it would populate the box with the number that's accordingly. So you think 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0 is never and 3 is almost always. I can use radio button, gives me the corresponding number on the side, or I can just click in the box and type the number, and it automatically populates the radio button for you. So however you want to do it is up to you. Once they start learning the process, it seems like they'll move pretty quickly. Once I'm done with all my screeners, so I'm moving through, I've done Dean, and then I have Gerald, and then I may have Susie, and then Billy, and Tommy, and then Corey, and then I'm done. Once you're done with all of your screeners and you feel that all of the screeners are done properly, you would just hit the submit button in the bottom. You're not going to submit them one at a time. You're going to submit them as a group. And so all that's happening. It also can highlight if you've missed something and they turn red and say, you missed a button. Because as you're moving through them, you may miss something. So that would be the teacher form. If I'm looking at a parent form, and in that parent view, same thing. This will be the one that you were to print it off and send it home, if you look up at the top, there is a code up here, that's the number that is associated with this form. So to fill it out by hand, you'd send it back to the teacher can then put the data entry in for you. And so we have that type of system built into place. So a parent completes a paper form, returns it, the school goes into, they click a button called data entry, and they'll go in and they'll just do the corresponding numbers, radio buttons, to whatever the parent signed in. And when they go in, they would just put in the code because that's specific to Dean. You can see that it's already pre-populated his name and printed it off for him. If you want to, it will have a link that's associated with it, and so they will have a link that they can hit that is unique to the form, and then the PIN is provided for them. They just put in the PIN, and they go from there, and they don't have to return it. And so you can print off that linked form if you want and send it to them, and they're doing it online if that's the process in which you chose to do it. So there's a couple ways you can get that parent information back. The student form would look a lot like the teacher form, where they just go in and put the stuff in online. It's easier for them. There are student forms you can print them out and do it that way and then have the teachers do it, but sometimes that dual entry where the kid does it and the teacher does it, it's just not the most effective way, and definitely not the most efficient way. So there's lots of ways you can combo the way, even if you want to get the information put into the system. Lots of different reports that can kind of come out of it. If you're looking at and just trying to understand T-scores, what's best, and things like that, you would talk about what normal risk is, elevated risk, and extremely elevated risk. Always look at the asterisk at the bottom. Just because it says normal risk doesn't mean there's an absence of it. It just means that it hasn't moved into the levels of what they're doing, getting too high to meet one of the thresholds for those other risk categories. So this is just kind of how it is. We have other screeners where not really based on T-scores, based on a level, and the teacher gives the score inside of a level, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so it wouldn't come out like this, but the analysis, again, would show you that if they're at risk or not. Some of the things to think about whenever you're doing screeners, and we have lots of information and data points that come out, talking about F indexes, consistency index, and response pattern. And why we show this is because when you're going in to do analysis and they're color-coded, you could possibly see a little icon next to the color. So if it was green, it's fine. If it's yellow, you're at that elevated. And then if you're red, you're at the extremely elevated. Underneath it may have a little triangle with an exclamation point in it. What that's telling you is that within the screening process, something may have gone awry. F index, basically the way to do it is the harshness scale or extreme scale. All the answers on the always on the never. So always is this extreme ends of the answers categories. It's either a 0 or 3 for everything, and which means it's hard that they never do it or they always do it. There's no in between. That will let you know that their responses might be a little harsh. And so it would pop up and let you know that. You want to look at this kind of with that lens. The next one would be consistency. They have ratings, they have questions that the student is very organized, or the other one says a lot of times has missing materials or things that are conversing with each other. And if you're answering always for both, it doesn't make sense. So if they're always organized, they wouldn't be missing all this stuff all the time. So it's watching to make sure that you're answering those questions appropriately, but also they're looking for that response pattern. The response pattern is the way that the form is set up. You shouldn't be able to go 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 0. You can't make patterns because the way it's designed, it will pick up on that you're making this pattern sequence. Because the questions, it's either going to pop up in there or probably pop in the consistency because you're not answering the questions the way you're supposed to. So it has some mechanisms built in there to really help you when you're looking at it and support you as you're looking at it. We have lots of different ways to look at reports. We have the invalid screener, the preparedness. That's a lot for the people that are putting in the students, making sure that students are in, users are in, and they're assigned rosters and they're verified through those types of things. The score exports, we have a summary of everything. You can look at it by the user, how they've done it. So those are all reports that you would see. So if you look at a summary by user, it's going to say down at the bottom who completed it. That's the teacher. And they had 2 students. You can see they were both yellow. If I click on the teacher's name, it's going to bring up the student's name. So you can drill down into what's happening. So those are reports. They're going to give you some, if you want some big broad-based ideas of what's happening. If you did the export, it takes it into a spreadsheet, and you can manipulate the data however you want. So it's going to bring all the information into an export, put it into an Excel file, and then you can manipulate the data however you decide to cut and slice that up. We're also looking at another report that shows you this big one, this big summary. And so you're saying it's 100% of your students, because you only use 2 of 2. The score distribution, how it's falling along those lines, and then it does it by grade. So if you're a multiple grade teacher, you can look at different ones. You can do it by gender, you can do it by ethnicity. So there's lots of different ways to look at how that's working. So those are reports. There's a few of those, about 5 different ones you can run there. One of the most common is the summary, and they also like to run the export so they can manipulate the data and look at it, in different ways. Analysis is a little bit different when it shows up. When you go into the analysis tab, you're going to see that down here, you can see the score that Gerald and Dean received from the screener for the teacher, but also you can see that little icon at the bottom. So something with Gerald kind of went a little haywire, but you just click on that. If you click on their name, you would see, like with Dean didn't have anything, so it shows the F index, the consistency index, and response index were all acceptable, so we don't have to worry about that. And there's a few things that you can do in here. You can look at the BERI, which is the overall rating index, their score and the percentile they fell in, and then ERI, which is external, IRR is internal, and ARI is the adaptive. So you're looking at those 3 areas, so you can say that adaptive, we really don't have a problem with that. Some of the at-risk is both internal and external. I can click on a full report. If I was to click down the corner and hit full report, it would take me to the next screen, and it actually will show you everything, the scores, plus how the teacher filled out the form. One thing before we leave the screen, if you go down here, if he didn't have a plan in place, where it says edit plan, it would say create plan. If you hit create plan when you're moving in that direction, it'll actually tell you some good ideas for objectives for the student. But if I click on full report, it gives me all of those F indexes and the consistency in those. Plus it has the BERI and all the ones I talked about above. But then it gives you the actual scoring of what they did. So they're going to tell you and show you how they answered each question. So if there was something like a response pattern issue, you can go in and look and see what they're talking about as far as the pattern. So I highlighted that in green just to show you that it'll look like it's been penciled in, and that will show you exactly what the questions and how they answered them. So I can go in and run those. So as far as reporting and analysis, several reports, the analysis is more of drilling down and looking at it and then making some decisions from there where you're going to move next. So if you're screening your kids and you find out, all of a sudden Dean and Gerald popped up and they're in that elevated risk, we might want to look into possibly moving them to the next tier and working with them and providing the teacher with some strategies and some interventions to help with the behaviors. Of course, with those, and the one we looked at, there was internalizing, externalizing, so we're going to have to work on both of those areas because they're showing it in both. And so that's kind of where we are. So the next slide is questions, but I just kind of want to overview everything we talked about a lot. We're thinking about conceptually, we want to look at our district as a whole, maybe it's certain campuses as a whole, and find out if there's something happening that we may not be aware of, that we're not seeing, or Gut's not telling us that it's happening, and we're able to glean all the information out. We can set up our screeners to target specific grade levels, campuses, the whole district if you want. You can do them that way. Who's going to do the screening for you as far as the user type, the end user. You're going to be looking at trying to figure out, once all this information comes in, how do I want to look at the reports? We have some, and you can also run them from the export. You can do your own. But also just kind of looking at, I have this analysis, and where do I move next? Because I have this information. It's now in front of me. And we started at the beginning talking about making informed decisions, data-driven decisions. You now have information in front of you that's probably supported through conversations with the teacher prior, through anecdotal stuff that they're keeping themselves or other means of data that they have. I now can put those all together and say, we probably need to find some ways to start helping the student, because what we're doing right now, they're not really responding to. It may be just an elevated risk, or it may be a kid who's off the charts. And it also may validate some of the stuff that's been happening. Teacher is saying this is what's happening, this is what's happening, and the principal has gone in or what have you, or someone else has gone in, and they don't see it. And of course, kids' behavior can change when they know the principal's in the room. So those are things that we can really use to our benefit and really get screening going. So it can be a process. The way it's designed, Review360 is a very simplistic way of doing it, and it gives you a ton of data on the back end to start making it. You don't have to do the calculations. You don't have to do the reporting, because all that stuff's built in there for you. So hopefully you saw something in here that resonates with you and maybe something that you're thinking, yeah, we probably should do this, or we do some of this, but this may help. So now, Sherry, I guess we're getting to that point where we can kind of open this up for questions. I don't know if any have populated in the chat room, but I'd be happy to answer anything out there from the audience.
Yes, we just have one so far, and it's regarding, is there a trial for the Review360?
If you go to the Review360 website, you can ask for a demo, and what will happen is that will alert somebody within the company that will say, we'll talk with you, show you, and they can work on possibly seeing if you want to test it out or not. So there's a way to get to there.
Okay, and that's all we have for questions.
Okay.
Quiet group today.
Yes, very quiet. That's okay.
All right, well, I guess we'll close out a little early today. Thank you so much for your presentation. Oh, here's one. How long is the demo on the website?
If you go in to ask for a demo, how long is it? Generally, the demo, if someone was to show you, and you may talk to somebody within the company and they actually show it to you, demos, I've done demos in 30 minutes to an hour, just so you can kind of see how the process works. So they're not too terribly long, just to kind of show you the guts of it and how you would set it up. A little more than a screenshot. It would be more of an interactive type of demonstration, so you can see how it works.
Okay. So I guess we're done now. There's no more questions, but thank you for an awesome presentation, and thank you to all the participants. And this does conclude our webinar.
Thank you, Sherry. Thanks, everybody.